Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Create the Ripple podcast. I'm your host, Candace Smiley. Here we trust the Niggle and we tell the truth. This is a podcast. We are looking to have conversations that matter, conversations that take courage to engage in, where we cut through the noise that exists online to bring you incredible content, amazing speakers, and stories to inspire you to live your best, listen to yourself, and tell the truth of who you are and who you just might become. All right. Well, welcome back to another episode of the Create the Ripple podcast. My guest today, well, you guys can't see her, but she's got this amazingly beautiful smile, and we hit it off immediately. Mama needed some coffee, and so she was gracious enough to let me do that. So, ladies and gents, I'm very excited to be sharing space with her today. Now, unless it's your first time joining us today, here we talk about trusting the niggle and telling the truth. And the niggle is that really annoying, inconvenient truth. It tends to show up as a sensation in your body, and it usually means you're going to have to do something different than what you're doing. We're going to talk about some of that today. And the telling the truth part is less about telling the truth to other people and more about telling the truth to yourself, because when you can do that, you can begin to live and operate from a place of integrity, which just makes living on plan, on purpose that much easier. So without any further ado, let's hear from my guest today.
Hi, I'm Melinda Jackson. I'm the owner of Melinda Jackson Public Relations, and I'm based in Raleigh, North Carolina in the States, a little bit further south from where you're at, yes. A lot further south and a lot warmer.
Mm-hmm. I'm excited. So PR, PR has always fascinated me. So tell me how you got into that. And then I really do want to circle back around to the burnout, because I have a sense that you and I have a very similar experience in terms of how we burned out and what we learned from that burnout. But let's give people a little bit of a backstory about how you got to where you are today.
Yeah. So I grew up here in North Carolina. I'm from a family of entrepreneurs, to the point where, my dad was the CEO of a finance company, but then had 10 other businesses on the side. Right. So, It's in our bones, work hard, grew up across the street from my grandpa's farm, big farming family on all sides, hardworking Southern people. And so that was really instilled in me. And after college, I moved to Los Angeles because I wanted to work in entertainment, public relations. And so for those that don't know, public relations, it can mean a lot of different things, but at its core, it's really all about how a client, a business, a person relates to the public. So is it getting them media hits? Is it getting an entertainer on a red carpet? Is it helping someone throw an event for a brand? It's all these outward facing things that aren't necessarily advertising or marketing. It's more organic in a lot of ways. So I wanted to move to LA, and I did a planning trip, did not result in any job opportunities at all. Got offered a lot of internships, but still knew in my gut, again, trusting the niggle, like you said, knowing that I was meant to live in LA. And my family said, we're going to cut you off if you leave. It's not a good idea. You're not set up properly to go. And I was like, I do not care. I'm doing this. So I packed up everything I could in my car, had $500, had a paycheck on the way in 2 weeks. The day after Christmas, had all of my Christmas presents, which was like a bunch of gift cards, like to Subway and
Planning,
Target.
And, yeah.
Yep. All this stuff. Literally had a freezer bag of quarters that my papa gave me because he was collecting them for all of us, and it had all the 50 states on it. I had that to use for laundry. Like, I don't even have any of them today. And it's sad because he's passed away, but I'm like, you know what, whatever. But I knew this is what I needed to do. So I moved to LA, really struggled for a long time. I was doing 3 internships at once, just hustling. None of them were paid. I had plenty of part-time jobs. I was coaching cheerleading out of school, doing all of this stuff. And this was in 2009. So we were in like economic ruin in the United States. So no one was getting a job. Everyone was going to grad school, but I just kept on doing it. And 7 years later, I ended up at my dream firm, my dream PR firm, and everything was, on paper, this magical, beautiful thing that it should have been, but it was the worst experience of my life. And I was so burned out from my previous firm that I was at for 6 years that I stayed out way too long and got paid $0. And being alone in LA and working in such a like fast-paced environment, being completely alone, not having any family over there. I was 3,000 miles from any of my family, you know, about to turn 30. My grandma had just died. My second nephew had just been born. And I was like, I can't do this. I could not keep food down. It was manifesting in my body. My anxiety was so bad. I couldn't sleep. I could not think straight. I kept messing up at my job and kept getting in trouble for mistakes I made that were stupid mistakes that I should not have been making, but I did not have the capacity to function. Like literally basic human functions I could not do. And that was really a pivotal moment in my life. And I moved back to North Carolina, and we can get into all the rest of that later. But that was such a huge moment for me, really listening to myself. Like, one, trusting my gut that LA was where I needed to be. And I do not regret that at all. I loved my time there. But two, realizing when enough was enough, and I had to stop fighting it. And I had to listen to my body, and I had to listen to my gut and the universe and God, and be like, okay, things have to change, because I am dying, like physically dying.
I know. So I don't think I've ever shared this with my listeners before, but when I finally took my break and got recentered, refocused like you, I don't, regret the years that I did before. I worked like you, multiple businesses. I was in event planning. I did way too many events for free, met a ton of people, grew my network, you name it. It put me in a great space, but I ended up working a lot more from my masculine, which was for multiple, spaces. I was working in a man's world. And so it made more sense. I was doing more events for men. And so they appreciate that I would speak their language. The problem was I was so divorced from what I needed and who I was and how that was supposed to play out, because it had started because I knew I was called to connect, collaborate, and communicate, right? These are things that I knew I needed to do. And so I'm still doing that today. Like, I look at podcasts and it still feels like an event, right? There's still promotion. We're still getting together. So all of those things have continued all the way through, but I burned totally out. And I used to burn out like every, 4, 5, 6 months, and I would like disappear and turtle, right? My friends would be like, you were there and then we don't see you for a month.
Yep.
And I would literally
hermit mode.
Like, right? Totally hermit mode. No energy, no space. And then I chatted with a naturopathic doctor, and I'd always had a sense that if I don't slow down at some point, I had some really great mentors who said to me, your adrenals are really, really taxed. And I've had the adrenal failure, land on the floor, couldn't move, you name it, right? I could see it coming a mile away. They said, you're going to run out and come to this place where because your body's been living on adrenaline for so long, it's going to have a negative effect. It's going to manifest in an autoimmune disease. It's going to manifest in some sort of interesting way, which was a huge wake-up call for me. Okay. And then COVID hit, and all of a sudden the world shut down. And I was like, oh, I don't have to be going to 10 networking events, a month in order to be successful. And I think for a lot of people that really happened. And it was really a really great pause for me to stop that habit that I had been in before then of constant burnout. So you made the shift, you move home. How have you structured your life now so that you're not burning out? Because you're still in PR. So you're still doing the thing that you were called to do, but how do you do it now without the burnout?
Yeah. And honestly, I think if I moved back to LA now and got back in that, I would obviously handle it a lot differently for a lot of reasons, but noticing when to say no and noticing when to stop and to listen to my body and all of that stuff, instead of just saying yes to everything. Because I'm like you, it's so easy for me to just tap into that masculine and just be like, let's go, let's do this. And then it's like, okay, you have to have that balance. And I am very bad about being masculine, just in like romantic relationships, and I give the guy no space. And don't worry, I go to therapy about it. And
oh my gosh,
another podcast.
Listeners, you may not know this, but seriously, I do not try to chat with my people before I get on the call, so that you are literally hearing me learn about them the same way that you are. And then they start talking. I'm like, where you been, sister? Like,
no, I literally was going to say, I think we were separated at birth. We'll figure this out later. But anyway, so when I moved back to North Carolina, I got a job at an advertising agency. So it was very similar to what I was doing in Los Angeles, but completely different. And 2 years there, I burned the fuck out again, like donezo, because I didn't learn my lesson. And also I wasn't where I needed to be. And it was like the universe, God, my gut were all telling me, get the fuck out. If you don't get out, we're physically removing you. And so again, I had my whole body shut down. I got kidney stones. I had to get kidney surgery because I got kidney stones. I was having to go to the chiropractor 3 times a week. My back was so fucked up from all the tension and everything. I'm trying to work out because working out like makes me feel good. But when your adrenals are so burned out, you have nothing to go on.
Nothing
you're so
left.
in fight or flight. You're in such fight or flight that's hurting you worse.
Yes.
And like, even just going for 30 minutes on the elliptical is still, it's not, you have nothing in your tank. Yes. So, I went to my doctor one morning. I texted my doctor. I was really close with him and I was doing freelance work for my doctor's office. So I was close with them anyway. I texted them and I was like, I do not want to be alive anymore. I'm not suicidal. I just cannot do this. We have to get me on medicine today. And I am not a medication person. And I'm very open that I have anxiety and depression, but I just know that a lot of my blocks are for things that I need to work through, not necessarily as much of a chemical imbalance as some other people have. I know the things that I can do to cope with it. And again, work with a therapist, work with my doctors on this. I know that this is something that's not needed for me. Got on depression medication like that day. A week later, quit my job. My bosses told me, you should just stay. We'll develop you a little bit more. Then you can go out on your own. You're not ready. Nobody's going to want to work with you. You don't really know what you're doing. At this point, I was 9 years into PR, almost 10. And I'm like, I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing at this point. I'm good. Trust me on this. I told my parents I was going to leave my job. They said, well, you need to go and cancel your lease and you need to move back in with us because they live about 45 minutes from where I do. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. Watch. Within a week, I had 3 freelance clients that would have covered all of my bills. So I'm still handling my 2 weeks left at my job. And I was still going to do a little bit of freelance work for them on the side. But I had, within a week of quitting, had enough clients that I could sustain myself. And making that jump and trusting my gut and going against everybody else, but knowing that I'm going to be protected and knowing that I have the skill set that I could sustain this and that I could do this, it helped so much. And like 3 years later, I have a thriving business. I'm helping people every day grow their businesses through media relations. My business doubled during COVID. I make 3 times what I made at agencies, and I'm able to travel the world and work a lot less hours and have such a beautiful work-life balance. Do I still have times where I'm anxious and depressed? Yes. And my clients know that I have that. And that's something I'm very vocal about. And they are like, girl, you're in Mexico. Don't work this week. Have fun. You deserve it. You've been doing a great job. And I take that to heart. I take that very seriously. I could not do that at an agency. I could not do it.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think that's, exactly. Yeah, we were definitely separated at birth for sure. And the number of times that I have sort of stepped out, and I think it's been hard for the people around me, my parents being one of them. They are lovely, amazing people. And they couldn't imagine living the way I do, right? And the number of times when, like, for example, when I got left with a significant amount of debt because I have a really, have had a really bad meter when it comes to choosing men. And I got left with over $350,000 worth of debt. And everybody said, well, just claim bankruptcy. And I was like, no, look, like, girl's going to figure it out. Girl did figure it out. And it was like that, like you said, this knowing. I'm like, no, I will go. I will use my skill set. My skill set's amazing. I can charge for it. This is what I'm going to do. I've had amazing people who stepped up and said, yeah, we're going to help you get, through this and reset your life and recreate it. So I love what you brought up there. I love that you know yourself, because I would agree, for years I struggled with wanting to end my life. And it's usually, well, at the time, it was because I was stuffing down a sexual assault that happened. I was stuffing down these things. And rather than speak out and tell someone they were making me uncomfortable, they hurt me, or removing myself from situations like that, I was taking it on. I was blaming myself. Well, you can't live with that kind of self-hatred and not want to, end yourself. And people are like, well, do you worry about it now? I'm like, no, sure. I have a down day where I think, girl, you need to go back to bed, right? Yeah. Like, hit the reset button. But for me, a lot of those things that, like you say, are depressive symptoms were because I was not listening to myself. And I'm a huge advocate for that. Chatted with a woman a number of weeks ago, and said, she's like, well, I'm debilitated by anxiety. And I said, is there something that's happened in your life that you haven't talked about yet? And you can see it on her face. And I said, I don't need to know, I don't want to know, but I have the name of a really great therapist. And I said, I betcha if you can deal with that thing that you're not talking about, that anxiety will at least become manageable. At least it has for me. So I love that you brought that up.
Here at Awakening the Wise Woman, we know what it's like to start the year with a big, audacious, exciting goal in mind and get to mid-February and realize we've made zero progress towards it. That's why this year we're inviting you to join us in our Awakening Your Goddess Mindset free workshop series at the end of February. This is an opportunity to understand more about yourself and how you work and how to make meaningful change your way. We'd love to see you there.
Hello friends, my name is Rachel Shumway, here to help you set loving boundaries so you can have the best relationship with the most important person in your life, you. Because when you uphold your boundaries, you gain the courage to open up and let yourself be seen, loved, and supported. Through a mix of coaching, cognitive restructuring, and step-by-step conversation strategies, which all starts with my free 4-step badass boundaries process, I give type A, really like type awesome women, the tools to bring confidence into their relationships with authenticity and ease. You can get started by grabbing your free starter kit on how to badassify your boundaries by clicking on the link in the show notes to get started. See you soon.
Hey there, friend. If you're resonating with this conversation and feeling the full body yes of this work, I would love to hear from you. So please do feel free to reach out. My book will be out in paperback in a couple of weeks, but if you can't wait, the e-version is available right now, today, on my website, and it's compatible with all Apple, Android, and e-reader devices. You'll find all the links you need in the show notes and on the blog. I want to thank you so much for listening, and I'm really looking forward to connecting with you.
Let's talk about this imposter syndrome. How the heck does somebody who is as fabulous as you have imposter syndrome? And I say that because I know some women who listen to my podcast and they definitely struggle with imposter syndrome. And so I love that you are so honest about this. As successful as you are, you still feel that. Let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, I think, well, we're always going to be our toughest critic. And that's something that I always work through, with my therapist, with like astrologists, with everybody. Everyone's like, what, why are you being so hard on yourself?
Realizing this? Okay. Really amazing women like us have therapists, right?
Oh yeah.
They're like on speed dial.
Like literally, y'all, I've worked with some of the most famous people in the entire world. Everybody has a therapist, and everyone, and this is actually a question and a topic that I brought up. I was at a conference. I was at Create and Cultivate in Chicago, and I brought this up, and it was like, Ashley Tisdale and, from High School Musical, and she's got all these other things. And like I think Whitney Port was on there from The Hills and all these like really successful women. And I'm like, do you guys have imposter syndrome? And they're like, yeah, all the time. We're always like, what am I doing? Because Ashley Tisdale was like, I don't know if people are going to take me seriously with my brand because I'm this girl from High School Musical. And Whitney Port was like, I don't know if people are going to take my fashion line seriously because I was on a reality show. Yeah. And so everyone experiences this. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of helps me feel a little bit better about things. But I think for me, and it's something I didn't even realize, and it was like a pivotal moment for me this summer. I went on a hiking trip with this guy I'm very, very close with, and I just love him to death. And we were in a cab in Vegas because we were going to go to the airport. And he's like, why do you always tell everyone that you lived in LA? That's the first thing you lead with. Why do you do that? You own a company, you have a Grammy, you have all these things. Why do you lead with LA? That's not you. And he's like, there's so many other things in your life that are beautiful and you're so successful. Like, why are you doing this? And I'm like, because I feel like if I don't say that to people, I'm not good enough, or they're not going to take me seriously. If I just say, hey, I live in Raleigh and I have a PR company, they're just going to be like, okay, cool. I don't know what that is. And who gives a shit? But if I say, hey, I lived in LA and I have a Grammy and I know all these famous people and I still talk to them, then that's going to make me seem better and they're going to take me more seriously. And it's stupid. And it's something I'm working through. It's dumb. But knowing that everybody feels this way.
Mm-hmm.
Most people, like, I promise you, Beyonce does not feel like she's enough. I promise you she doesn't.
Right? Which is crazy, Queen Bey, you know, like seriously.
I know.
Oh my gosh. Well, you know what? I love that. And I love that you're able to show up, you know, with this incredible level of transparency, because one of my favorite quotes is by Murray Wickshire, and she talks about, you know, what happens if one woman tells the truth about her life? The world splits open. And originally when I heard this quote, my listeners know this, you know, for me, telling the truth at that point in my life meant like the ending of things. So splitting open was not going to be a positive thing. Whereas now I feel like when, you know, women like you and I come together and we're telling our truth to each other, to the world, we're opening up in a way that allows for change and transformation. And so when one other woman who says, well, I really want to do this, right, she might go out and do that. I love that you operate from your masculine, because this is such a challenge for me now to live in the feminine. And I was listening to a meditation the other day. You know, the feminine is not just about like, you know, waiting for stuff to happen. The feminine is very active. It's just different active. Mm-hmm. And it was talking about how we have to make an agreement to receive. And I was thinking about
that's my goal for the year. That's my goal for the year, is to be better about receiving, because I cannot do it. I literally cannot do it.
I know. And this whole concept of, I'm like, do I make an agreement to receive? Like, do I say, okay, I'm ready to receive, but have I actually made the agreement, which is really powerful, right? You and yourself in the mirror. I make the agreement that when something comes to me, I will receive it. I will be open to it. I'm ready for that. And it was very interesting to me, because I was like, do I do that? Or do I just continue to sort of move forward? And lately the universe has been trying to give me things, and I've been kind of like, I don't know. And I was like, wait, you made an agreement to receive. So just receive. And then the challenge has been very much from that woman energy, at least for me, the unhealed feminine, which is to overwork, to overgive, to overcompensate, because we are simultaneously too much and not enough. Do you find that shows up in your life?
Oh my God. Like, you're preaching to the damn choir right now. All of this. Literally, I'm drinking rose tea, because that is going to open you up your heart chakra a little bit. Rose is the highest vibration energy of flowers. And it just helps me. Like, if I'm drinking, I'm like, okay, this is a thing that's feminine. I can do this. You know, I'm just drinking a thing. But yeah, like, it's hard, and receiving is so hard for me. And like, I saw it show up so much in not only romantic relationships in the past year or so, but like friendships. Like, I will not borrow a book from anybody. I'll just go out and buy it. And like, God forbid, I'm like at a dinner with a guy and he pays for it. And I'm like, well, you don't think I can pay for it? And then I make him feel bad, because I'm like, I made more money than you make, bitch. Like, I got you. I'm a boss. Like, I can do this. And then I make them feel like shit, because I don't know how to just let people do things for me, because I don't feel worthy enough to receive. And so now that I've worked through all my like unworthiness stuff, I'm like, it's okay if I borrow a book from somebody, or somebody gives me a book, or if someone takes me to dinner or whatever. Like, it is okay. They do not think I'm mooching off them. They do not think less of me. As much as I love to give to people, and it lights me up to give, other people like that too. And they don't expect anything in return, and it's okay.
Well, it's like breathing. And that was something I've had to learn, right? Like, you can't just, you know, suck in air, and you can't just blow it out either, because then you die. So you do have to like in, out, which is challenging, because, you know, I'm usually the one that has to jump in. And how often have I, you know, taken on too much, because I feel like I always have to fix, rather than allowing the person to experience what they're experiencing. Something that's really supported me to take on, you know, not like feeling like I can't accept and receive, is to make sure that I can give them the gift of my thank you, which has had a huge impact. You know, somebody pays for dinner or lends me something, you know, do I stop, look them in the eye? As an introvert, that's hard for me anyway, but look them in the eye and say, thank you. and you should see them light up. I'm like, ooh, this is good. And then I feel like, that energetic exchange has actually happened, even if I make sure that the book gets back to them sooner than later.
Yeah.
Right. So I feel you in that, because I think we both have fought so hard to have our space and have our place, rather than just being able to say, here I am. One of the things that made a huge difference in the current romantic relationship that I'm in is I emerged after 14 weeks of healing, and I had a feminine balance coach. She was amazing, helping me, fix that side, then realize I needed to marry the masculine and the feminine, like they needed to come together. There was a reason there's both existing. And so the first time I showed up with this individual, he and I'd hung out as friends before, and I sat down and he's like, how are you? And rather than launching into, what wasn't real and true in that moment for me, I went deep and I said, well, I've just emerged from 14 weeks of healing. I've been seeing a feminine balance coach on Thursdays and a therapist on Mondays, and just about any other therapist I can in the meantime, because I'm trying to become embrace my feminine. And the look on his face was like total shock. And then he settled into his chair and he said, well, that's interesting, because I've been studying masculine energy for the last 5 years. And I thought, well, of course I would attract that kind of person right now, regardless of where it goes from here. And he's like, tell me more about that. And it was an amazing way to start the relationship, because it sort of set the tone, and then at some point he said, well, maybe you have different boundaries now. Like, what does that look like? And I said, I have no idea what it means to be in a relationship if I'm living in my feminine, and I'll probably go to the masculine all the time and make more decisions. If I don't feel safe, I'm instantly going to go that direction. What does that look like? Do you experience stuff like that now as you're sort of wandering into dating?
Oh my God. That's literally realizing that boundaries are a thing and I need to have them with people was a game changer for me this last year. And I say this last year because I had I don't want to put all my business on here, but I did have a situationship, thing happening with someone. A situationship. That's what the youths are calling it these days. I learned that from my intern.
Okay, there you go.
But I had a situationship, and we've known each other for a very long time. And we were trying to see where things were going to go and whatever. And I realized oh my God, I'm getting in fight or flight. One, I had to learn about attachment styles. I am anxious attachment style. He is avoidant attachment style. And those are complete opposite. But then learning that we're both coming from a place of anxiety, and he's just shutting down and I'm just grabbing on, which makes him shut down even more, figuring out what that balance is, and then figuring out, okay, I am overriding. I'm bulldozing. That's what I always say. I'm bulldozing you, bud. I'm bulldozing you. I realize that. I'm being way too masculine, babe. I gotta pull it back. So that, and then boundaries. Oh my God, a boundary. Hey, we went through some really intense times, and I was like, let's not talk for X amount of days. If I have an end date, I can survive that, and that will help me not be anxious. So let's do this. And we had to do that a couple times. And right now we're not even really talking, and it's okay. And whatever happens, because we're both in different parts of our lives. Mm-hmm. But it's been such a learning experience for me. And I think a huge test from the universe, and a learning and growth time, probably for both of us, honestly. Because it's let's just regardless, we have to grow, mm-hmm. And I'm learning so much. And if no matter who I end up with, I know that I can then go into a relationship completely different than I would have shown up before.
Oh yeah. And speaking as somebody who really literally stumbled into, what has become an incredible relationship. My current partner, Mark, he said to me, he's like, I always thought you meet your person and, they'd help you work through your stuff, but you meet your person and the work continues. And that's just such a huge awakening. The difference is that I'm not trying to help him unpack his stuff because I feel like I'm further ahead, and he's not trying to help, me. It's just, we are literally just there and aware that our triggers, and we talk about it. And sometimes I'm showing up and I'm saying things like, I don't even know how to talk about this right now, but this is what's coming up from me. Or you say this and then I feel this way. And I've never been that honest before, because it's really vulnerable, and being vulnerable is really scary. You're like, what are you going to think of me? And then I think, well, what am I going to think of me? I spent my whole life trying to make everybody else comfortable. And how is that? How uncomfortable is that? That's just, yeah. I feel like, are you doing a lot of reading around this? Because I feel like I'd like to leave the listeners with like some books or some audios or something. Because I feel like they're like, me, that's me. What do I do about it?
Yes. Oh my God, I have all the things. I literally have all the things. I have all the tips and tricks. Okay. I'm just going to, do you want me to just give them to you? Okay.
Let's give it to you because my VA will pull them out and they'll be all down below and the girls can go find them.
Perfect. Okay. So one, I do the To Be Magnetic work. So it's a course, it's a bunch of coursework by Lacey Phillips. She's out of LA. She's amazing. So it's all manifestation work, but it's really rooted in neuroscience and like mirror neurons. And, you know, it's something that you can do alongside a therapist. They kind of suggest it because you journal and you do these meditations and you work through it. And then you can always talk about it with your therapist later. And you know, it's just been amazing. They have like inner child work and going through lack and lack mentality around money and things like that, and why you maybe don't feel worthy. That's been very transformative for me. And even if you don't necessarily want to sign up for that, she has a great podcast you can listen to. I think it's called Expanded, but it's To Be Magnetic. And there's just tons and tons of stuff on there. And they literally work with like people in the science field. So it's not just all woo woo. It's there is some like clinical research behind it. Then book wise, Attached. So that's all about learning your attachment styles. So good. And then Codependent No More. That has really helped me. And that one's really about, it's more for like people who are involved or around an alcoholic or someone that's in Al-Anon. But there's still just so much good stuff in there, and realizing like, oh my God, it's not my problem to fix everyone all the time. I need to fix myself first. So that's really helped.
Yeah.
And then just a fiction book that I absolutely love that I think is just amazing. And I'm rereading it right now and I gift it to everybody. It's called The Course of Love by Alan de Botten.
I had read all of them until you said that. So I was like, okay, we're on the same page.
Yeah. So it's the Course of Love by Alan de Botten. And it's a fictional book about this couple, and it's like the truest form of like love. Like it's the most realistic form of like love in a realistic relationship. Like it is not this beautiful, like, well, like, oh, Hearts and Flowers book or like Sexy Time or anything like that. It's like, okay, these two people are severely broken, but they found their way to each other. But the drama does not stop there. You know, it's like they still have to work through their own issues together and separately. And it's just a beautiful book.
Okay. I'm excited. I have to make sure I find books that are not just work related. Because otherwise I just, I move from like work to work to work to work to work, and there's no break. Yeah. Wow. Okay. I'm excited. Well, ladies, I have read most of those except this To Make Magnetic. I'm in.
To Be Magnetic. Oh my God. It's so good. Even if you like, I would suggest starting with their podcast and just to get a feel for it. But like, I'm very woo-woo. I'm all about manifestation, but this is the best thing because it's not the secret. It's not just imagine it. It's going to happen, because I think that we're set up for failure. And they talk about that too. Like we're set up for failure if we say, oh, you just keep thinking about it, it'll happen. Cause then you beat yourself up when it doesn't. But if you work your way through the blocks and figure out, oh, actually that's something I'm stuck on. And like, there's a lot of unworthiness around that. You work through that, you up level, and then you can get what you want.
Yeah. You have to become what you want. You don't attract what you want. Yeah. You attract who you are.
Exactly.
I think for most people, they're like, ouch. And I'm like, you're welcome. Don't I know it? Yeah. Well, this has been so much fun.
Oh, thank you.
Seriously, this has been so much fun. Anything else you want to leave the listeners with before we, unleash you? I don't have to get back though. Seriously.
Yeah. Oh God. And I could talk about this stuff forever. I mean, if anybody's like interested in PR, the work side of things, you can find my website. I'm sure you guys will have it in the notes, but it's melindajacksonpr.com. On social, it's at Melinda Jackson PR. I don't really update my professional stuff that much, but my personal stuff is way more fun. So that's at Melinda Gale, Gale. It's the masculine spelling of Gale, because my grandma spelled it wrong for my mom, and then I got it too. So it's just and Melinda means gentle, and Gale is like my spelling of Gale is like a forceful wind. So I'm just this big contradiction.
I was going to say, you're this big wind of change. Like, come on.
Yeah, I'm something. I am something.
You're
but
something.
yeah, so at Melinda Gale. And yeah, like if somebody's interested in PR, I do that, but then also I do a lot of consulting calls too for entrepreneurs who are just starting out and want to do PR on their own, just to get the ball rolling. I do that, and I'm about to launch a DIY PR course in about a month.
Very cool. Okay, well, we will make sure that we have all of the links, and certainly if you have some sort of an affiliate program, that's my jam, to refer people that I love and trust, as we were talking about, right? That it's all about the vibe for me. And so I'm so glad we had a chance to actually meet you and chat with you some more about, the real stuff, all the things. That's going to be the title.
All the things.
Boundaries are a thing.
Boundaries are real.
They are.
Like, I'd seriously never had a boundary in my life until this last year. And I was like, why don't any of my relationships work? Oh, okay. Now we get it.
Oh my goodness. Well, Melinda, thank you so much for holding space with me today and showing up as honestly as you had. I've just had a ball, and I can't wait to have you back for an encore performance. So we'll have to have you back after all those things launch and see what's going on in your world.
Yeah, I would love it.
Beautiful. And to the rest of you all, you know the drill. Head down to the links below and click follow, like, share, comment. You know the drill. It means the world to those who are putting out this content and making the time to share as honestly as we do with you. And to the rest of you, thank you so much. And we'll catch you on the flip side.